Hello? Okay, sorry. God damn it. Not only was I late, I completely bodged. So there's a chance that my microphone could die. The DJI wireless mics, they have this nice, hopefully the music is not too loud. They have this nice like charging case, right? So you put the receiver goes in the middle, and then the two. I bought the one with two microphones. So the one microphone goes in here, the one I'm using, and then the receiver goes in here. And they must not have been seated all the way because they're about half charged. So hopefully I'll be able to get through the whole thing. The moment of realization, yeah, pretty much. Gosh. Okay, now I'm all flustered. Okay, back. Okay, hello everyone. I was saying that I would like to begin with a disclaimer that I'm not an electronic engineer. I have my experience with console modding is console modding my own consoles since about 2018 or 2017. But I've been doing a lot of, I've done a lot of research about different types and things. So, but I'm not I don't have a deep technical understanding of how these mods are created and stuff. I know some things about some things, but not a bunch of technical details. With that being said, I also want to thank PCBWay for sponsoring this stream again. We'll kind of talk about that. I guess I didn't really prepare anything PCBWay wise, but we can kind of discuss it a little bit. Is it the same mic you've been using? It sounds different. It shouldn't, other than me putting it on. It sounds different. No, I don't know. It's the same one. Maybe just sad because it's not charged all the way. Does it sound bad? Does it sound like, yeah, okay. All right, anyways, so we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm late, but let's dive right into it. So let me show you what I have done. So I have it, things are working. Now, webcam mic enabled? Oh, let me check. Let me check here. Is that better? Is that different? Better? Was that other audio scuffed? Maybe the webcam, but what webcam? Maybe my camera, but my camera would have been very quiet. It wouldn't have been able to hear that. I don't know. Oh, probably my these headphones have a microphone built in. Okay. I hope you could hear the disclaimer. That's what I wanted to get across. Okay. Let's talk about it. Let's go to the overhead. Okay. So, last time on the last episode of Dragon Ball Z, I struggle bust. Okay, I struggle bust. If you didn't, let's kind of recap for people who are going to join today. So I am sponsored by PCBWay, right? So they had sent me, and not only that, I tried something different. So normally when I do these streams on like open source projects and things, I just order a blank PCB, and then I like to hand populate the boards themselves, the boards myself. But in this case, I actually got PCBWay to pre-populate 5 boards, okay? As much as they could do. This part here that's empty on this board is some kind of a RGB amp. I talked about that a little bit last stream, and you guys saw me struggle installing it. That's pretty much the only piece that you guys would, like if you're gonna have somebody assemble them like PCBWay, they may have trouble sourcing this because it's a new old stock part. And so I bought some on eBay, right? So here they are. And these are like an obsolete part, like you can't really buy them new. You can buy them new old stock. So I had a really hard time installing these. Let me see. I want to show you guys a tweet. I tried to reach out to people to see if they would, if anybody had any tips on soldering these chips. But let me show you what it manifests as, so that you kind of know if you run across this yourself, or if you're doing the Lava RGB, you will probably run into this issue. You may run into this issue. I wish you had better. If you have better luck than I will, then yeah, you'll have like some really bright and shiny ones. But Let me let's get to my tweets. Here's kind of a crappy picture, but I did the best I could. I basically took a screenshot of OBS. So you can kind of tell, you can't, well, maybe you can tell. I can't tell on my little monitor here, but I can tell better on my OLED screen. There's a bunch of black marks and things, and it was particularly egregious on the underside of chips. Actually, you know what, I should show you quickly. So if I take one of these chips here, one of those 5 chips, and I get my microscope turned on. That's not the right thing. This is. Let's take a look at one of these close up. The underside of it. And this is why I was having such, now I realize that this is why I had such a hard time last time. So let's take a look at just the legs. And these are like this is like the part that makes contact. So this is flipped over, right? So this is normal side. You can kind of tell that they're silver-ish, and you can definitely see some blackening on the tops of the legs. But if you turn them over, all hell kind of breaks loose. Actually, oh, is that one bent? This one's bent here. See that one? But there's a lot of, I don't even know if it's corrosion or what, oxidation. There is a lot of it here, and that is why it was so difficult to solder these to the pads. So I asked for people to give recommendations. Some people recommended, you know, chemical salt fixing of that. So like I tried undiluted distilled white vinegar. Somebody recommended that. Basically did nothing to help it. What did sort of help on, so I populated a second board just for ha-has, just to get some experience. And first I tried the vinegar thing. I actually ended up snapping a leg off. Maybe the vinegar made the legs sort of weak, and I snapped one of the legs off. So that didn't really work. I think if you had a stronger solvent, somebody recommended, like, I don't remember exactly. Actually, it's here. Hydrochloric acid. That's like a serious chemical. But like, if you had a stronger acid and you put it in for like literally seconds, it might etch that stuff away and you'd be able to use it again. But then you'd have to wash it off like immediately with like distilled water to clean the acid off. I don't know if I would go that way. What did end up working for me on a second one, like I said, was actually what Artemis mentioned. Artemis mentioned something. Well, kind of two things worked, right? So I took a chip and I took some, actually this is not exactly what I used, but I took some 300 grit sandpaper, and basically I just put the chip, you know, leg side down where that oxidation was facing the sandpaper, and I kind of scraped away as much of that oxidation until it was just bare copper. That's what I ended up doing. So that is step one, was to, I also like examined it under my microscope. I kind of hate that a microscope is required in this sense, but you really do need to make 1000% sure that one, the legs are in really good shape, and two, you're soldering them really well, because it's not like it's difficult soldering. If it was a brand new chip, right, it might be doable without a microscope, but because it's a very finicky chip, you may need a microscope just to verify that things are fine. So step one is to use the sandpaper. Step two was I ended up using a knife edge tip instead of how I normally, when I do those things, you know, I like to try to take it easy and just do my chisel tip. But with the added heat advantage of a bigger tip, my knife edge tip, that made soldering the legs a whole lot easier, I feel. So the addition of the thermal, you know, additional thermal mass and heat from a knife edge tip, the second one that I did, which I don't know, I must have put it away, went a lot better. But that's not actually the one that I'm using tonight. The one I'm using tonight, the one I got working, is the first one that I worked on, the one that you guys saw on the stream. Okay, is there an alternative chip being considered for future design? So we could talk about that in a bit. As far as I know, Retro Castle is pretty much done working on this. They may be able to come back and maybe make some design changes, but to me it sort of seems like they're kind of, it's it. Like they put this thing out into the world and they're, I don't know. Like they didn't specifically say like, oh, we're not interested in fixing this thing and making adjustments. But I mentioned to them the thing about so if you were here last week, one of the problems that I was having with PCBWay, or not with PCBWay, but the design file, I suppose, itself. And it must have been somewhere along the line, because what I did was, in the beginning, I couldn't find the good Gerber files. Like the Gerber files that they had uploaded weren't working for me for some reason in PCBWay. They weren't like they gave you a little preview of the board. That wasn't working. So I kind of got scared. I'm like, I'm not going to upload this if the preview thing isn't working. So ManCloud took the Altium files and he imported them into KiCad or KiCad or whatever, and then he exported the Gerbers again, and that is what I uploaded, and I think that worked. But the problem along the way is one of the chips, one of these, this one in the middle here, the designator got lost somehow. So like the designator got lost, which means that they didn't have any way of placing that chip when they were doing the pick and place, this one here. So not this one, that's the one that that's the one that I soldered after the fact. Not this one. This is one that you should basically expect them not to handle unless you give them the RGB amp chips ahead of time, because they're going to struggle finding. The PCBWay is probably going to struggle finding that one because it's at that, it's that new old stock, because they want like a picture. They want like not a picture. They want like a listing to go source them. But that one should be populated, but it just, because of the Gerbers that I uploaded, it got lost and whatever. But if you look at the newest files, I guess the Altium source files are out there. If you look at the newest one, it does have a designator, so you guys shouldn't have a problem with that piece. For some reason, I did. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's that. So that's kind of an intro, I hope. If you have any questions, just let me know. Love the knife edge tip. That made some guy mad on Twitter. What guy got mad on Twitter? That the RGB chip was in there, or that was an old it was an old chip that I had. I don't know. I don't care about Twitter. People on Twitter. I mean, sometimes it's okay. So let's look on the overhead. Let me show you the setup. Okay, so this is not the Bug Tendo, like I said. This is this came from my original console that I first modded ever. So, but basically what all I did was I removed the old, here's the old, the guts, the old NESRGB, which interestingly, I put a de-jitter mod. So that's what this blue board is, actually a de-jitter, but this is a very old, this is a NESRGB, is that the version 1.4? So this is a pre-version 2. So it says copyright 2015. So this design is old-ish. Okay, so but this is the one that I have, and as you can see, I epoxied the jacks here. I even have the palette select switch, which I disabled because I don't know. I guess maybe at one point I had an IGR in here, but I removed it. I'm just bridging it so that it's always one thing. So this is the case for the motherboard that I had. So I took that motherboard because that was the only one I had available. I actually have a new one now. It came today, but I wanted to kind of get ahead of you guys in the stream so that I had some thing to show you, right? So working and ready to kind of look at and test. Okay, so that's what this is underneath here. What you're seeing here is the Merlin Shaw replacement power board here, but this version is called, Merlin has so many of these different versions of these now. But this one is called the NES Revival NESRGB companion module, and it's called the NESRGB because it has this, I don't remember what these types of cables are called, but it has a little connector here that has, what does it say? So ground, red, external audio, so that would be like expansion audio, I believe. Composite, C-Sync. So basically all of the headers on the NESRGB, or in this case the Lava RGB, you can solder them directly to the wires connected here. So let's show you that. So let's take this is my my slot master. So let's take the slot master out. We'll get to showing it in a second, but I've got to do some work on this actually before. I'll show you it as is because I want to do as little. I want it to do as little as possible to get this to work, and then we can always tweak it in this stream, and you guys can see what I've tweaked. So I guess I'll mention I removed the original power module. So here's the original power module to this. This was, like I said, this console was my original one. I really didn't do any other mods besides the NESRGB and the jitter mod. So I just desoldered this. I guess I can give you a little more detail about that. I desoldered the tops here. So normally this side is flipped over like this. So this is the orientation it is. So if you flip your whole NES over, I desoldered these big pins. And you can see I use a thicker nozzle for my, what the heck is this? What the hell is my, oh, the FR301. So I have a thicker nozzle that actually lets me desolder these kind of larger pins. Like you can see the other side of the pins here, these 5 pins. And so I desolder, and then I use just solder braid to, and there's like 1, 2, there's another one over here, 3, 4. There's just tabs that solder to here on the, so this, you can kind of tell how this was mated to the PCB. So I just used the solder braid and my my Aisin soldering iron, and so I was able to get the old one off. But I left the pins on this side because if you flip them over, and you kind of look at it at an angle, you'll notice that the NES power board is actually, it's like an inch, you know, it's kind of offset, right? So it's not like perfectly smashed to the board. Actually, somebody should design a 3D print that keeps this gap because this can kind of get kind of dangly. Okay, so then you could see the bottom side. So this is where I had to solder the part that I desoldered, the pins, the 5 pins. So that's this connection here is what gives, and actually you can look down into it. You guys won't really be able to tell, but I can kind of see it. They're labeled. There's some labels on the 5 pins, sort of underneath here, underneath, like on the Merlin Shaw board. Actually, let me see if I can get. I have another one floating around. Let me see if I can just get an example of what I'm talking about, because this will help you to understand the next part, which is how does audio, or one of the next parts, which is how does audio get to this thing. Here's another one that I've got. This is just, this is a USB power delivery one, so it gets rid of the barrel jack, and you can put in a 5 volts USB power delivery here. But you could tell this part here, which is what I was just talking about, the 5 pins, they're labeled with what they are. So this is kind of how does the power board communicate, I suppose, like what connections are made between the power board and the actual NES PCB, okay? So we see in this order, so switch out, switch in, that's referring to the power buttons on the front of the console. Actually, power, I believe, goes all the way through the console, probably to this blue connector here, and then out to the switch and then back in. And when I mean power, I mean the 9 volts, the DC input. But it's being bridged and unbridged through this power board, through those one of those pins there, okay? So then we have 5 volts out, so that would be 5 volts coming from, so like after you turn the console back on, that 9 volts is coming in here, then there's the 5 volt regulator, and then 5 volts is what actually powers the system. Then the last 2 pins here, this one says audio. Keep in mind that the original NES is mono, right? So a lot of these mods are basically just bridging mono to both left and right channel, I think, I'm pretty sure. And then this last one says video. That's actually composite video. So that's the stock composite video. If you were you had an unmodified console, that's what the PPU would generate. So the PPU would generate a composite video, and it would come back into this board. So basically, like, you know, power coming in from the power board onto the board, through the board and stuff, through the PPU, and then composite is generated, and it comes back into here, and I believe that is what the RF module uses to generate RF. So the composite that comes from the PPU goes to the RF module and then out. So that's how you can get RF. That's why it has RF and composite. So I guess I'll tell you right now, that is how audio gets from my setup here. So from, and I'll show you, I'll flip it over in a second, but audio actually comes through this pin. So we won't have to wire up audio. But that is, I guess this setup is sort of specific to this Merlin Shaw power board, right? If you didn't want to use this setup, you would have to use something like, maybe you have a multi-out. If you wanted to use a multi-out or something instead, you would have to get the audio from somewhere else for the multi-out. Yeah. Oh shit. Actually, I need to get some water for my sink. You guys can hear my sink. Been talking a lot. Okay, I'm back. All right, so I hope that all makes sense. Basically, my setup is specific to these Merlin Shaw power boards, specifically the NESRGB sort of companion one. When I sanded the IC legs, and where did you source the RGB video DAC IC? eBay. I just, actually Laser Hertz, or was it eBay or AliExpress? It might have been AliExpress. Laser Hertz, you could just put in the IC name and you could find a few. But Laser Hertz was one of the people that helped me to get the BOM working, or BOM set up way back when, before, when I was first starting this. And he found some, or they found some, and sent the link to me. So I just use those. But I feel like you're gonna have excuse me. I feel like you're gonna have the same kind of issue with finding old ones. Hell yeah, I've been waiting to scoop some of those new power boards. Yeah, so these are the ones that are Zaxor approved. Actually, you can tell on the bottom. They say Zaxor on them. These are the ones that have been sort of blessed. Let me see, it was the one I just had blessed by Zaxor? Yes, it was. This one says Zaxor as well. And I also have this third one that I put in the bug tendo that says Zaxor as well. Okay, so that is, this one is just a normal, more normal looking, just composite video output. And, well, actually it's not normal. So this would be where the RF would go normally, but composite video goes there, and then they just copy the left and right audio, just both the dual mono basically. So that's another board I've got. But this is on the bug tendo now because I was just testing the bug tendo because its power board was really rusty and gross. Okay, so that was the first step, was installing this here. Then what did I do? Let me unplug this thing, or at least that one. Okay, then I took out the original NESRGB. You guys saw it. The one that was in the bottom shell that I showed before was the NESRGB that was here. Now, that the PPU from this console was soldered. So the PPU that belonged to this board, the PCB here, was still soldered. It doesn't have a socket, so it was still soldered into the NESRGB, and I didn't want to mess with that. So I basically harvested the PPU from the bug tendo. So the PPU from the bug tendo is here. Now, I wasn't sure how this was going to work, or if this particular Lava RGB board was going to work. So I put a second socket in the top here for the PPU. However, you can't do this on yours, because if you put a second socket here, then the CPU is actually going to be in the way and you won't be able to close the console. It hits the bottom of the case if you add a second socket. So this is kind of a temporary thing. Now that I know that this is working, I'm gonna desolder the socket and solder the CPU directly to the Lava RGB, because I'm like basically gonna dedicate the bug tendo to the Lava RGB. Okay, so that's it. That's basically the how I sourced this PPU. This is from the bug tendo. My initial whole setup was going to be, I wanted to install this in the bug tendo PCB, but the bug tendo PCB is kind of a piece of garbage. So I knew this was a working system, so I used this one. So just know, basically, if you're going to do this to your own console, you would have to desolder the PPU from here and replace it with a socket, but that's pretty much going to be the same for an NESRGB build. So if you're already familiar with NESRGB, it will be no different for this mod, obviously. So that was step 3, I guess, was to desolder the PPU and then solder a socket there. Then next step was to solder these machine. So these are they're circle pins. They're not like normal pin headers that are square. these are the matching machine pins that fit into the machine pin sockets, right? So these are special pins that fit into the sockets. But again, that's nothing new. If you already have done an NESRGB, that's pretty similar. And I actually ended up melting the thing there a little bit. So then I put the socket on top here just so that I can do testing. But normally the PPU gets soldered directly onto the NESRGB. And something that's kind of curious, if you've never done NESRGB or whatever, you'll know, or if you have done it already, you'll know that the pins, like the NESRGB / the Lava RGB, is done in such a way that the pin headers that attach to the board and the pins that you solder for the PPU, they're kind of offset by a little bit, and your PPU is going to hit these pins. I'm sorry, my camera won't unfocus. It won't not focus on that. Can I have it? Can I get it to focus on that? No, it's the minimum focus distance is not right. So you can kind of see here, I'm just covering stuff that's just normal NESRGB sort of stuff, but just for context, the pins under here, they would actually hit the PPU here, so you can either cut them flush after you solder them on there, or just solder the PPU a little bit higher. Okay, so then the last step, obviously besides assembling the Lava RGB, if you're going to use the NESRGB companion from Merlin Shaw, is to attach the wires, and there's a pinout. The pinout is, it's available here, so you can kind of read it. Basically, it's to match up the wires from the power, the companion board here to, I did the underside, really. It doesn't, you could do it from the top side if you wanted to the vias here. So these wires. Now, I actually made a mistake, right? So I was trying to decode sort of what these letters meant, right? What is going on with my autofocus is really being dumb. Oh, I know why. Okay, so if you look here, and it might be actually difficult because there's some let me get one that doesn't have flux on it. I want to spend as little time like kind of cleaning. I just want to show you guys the output for now. We can dive into stuff later. Okay, so here are the pinouts really of the vias there. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the NESRGB. So here we have ground. Okay, so ground is there. Then we have C and Y, which is actually chroma and luma of S video. Okay, but I thought that C stood for composite video, and we'll get back to that in a second. So then there's C and Y, that's chroma and luma, okay? Then there's V. V is actually composite video, so V for video, okay? So just know, in my head, I switched up V and C. I got those backwards. Then there's B, G, and R, which are red, green, and blue, right, for the RGB output of the RGB amp and the overall Lava RGB kit. Then CS # or hashtag or whatever is composite sync, or which is a combination of vertical and horizontal sync. That's what CS hashtag means. That's sync. That's important. That'll be important in a minute. Then the other ones here are for the there is an IGR capability to this, but Voltar actually discovered or knew that this mod's IGR is only for Famicoms, I believe. I think he said that. There's actually a difference between how the NES, or some versions, I think the NES, let me see, let me get Voltar's exact words so that I don't say the wrong thing. Waiting. Okay, so the AV Famicom and the top loader, so maybe the Famicom is actually more similar to the, I don't know if the original Famicom is similar to the front loader or not, but the AV, according to Voltar, the AV Famicom and the top loader are what's known as active low reset. That means that the reset line on the system actually gets pulled low to actually reset the console. So that's just a signal that gets set low. That's how the console knows that it should be reset. That's like the CPU or something maybe. But the front loader, which this is an active high reset. So that data line gets pulled high, and then that's how the console knows to reset. So it's not compatible. These IGR onboard IGR things are not compatible with the front loader. So we're not really going to talk about that, which is kind of a shame because that means you can't switch palettes, really. And it's also kind of a bummer because there's no like other way to switch palettes, right? Because the NESRGB sort of actually depends on which version you get. I have a couple of old NESRGBs, a couple of older ones. This one is an NESRGB 2.0. This one has these. This is how you would select the palette. Normally, you'd wire those up to that single pole double throw, I think, switch, or I don't know, triple throw, double throw, triple throw. I don't know. That switch. That's what the palette select switch is for these wires here. And you notice it has no built-in IGR. That's actually why Voltar developed the IGR mod, which is based off of, I believe it's, I don't know if Voltar himself used Bordy's design, but Bordy has a design also. So I think Bordy's design got rolled into the NESRGB 4.0, and this is still in the wrapper. The labels on these pins are actually not the same, but this is where you would wire up the things like the clock and the reset, I believe. So they're labeled differently. They're not labeled, you know, like the Lava board is, right? So RST, clock, data, latch. That's pretty convenient because that's actually the lines that you need to wire to on the controller and the reset of the system. Whereas this is kind of like you have to go look up the pinout on the NESRGB website. So, all right, we're not talking about the IGR functionality anymore. Just know that this, I don't have, you know, there's no way to select the palettes. I'm not really going to talk about that anymore. And there's no way to do the IGR. So we're not going to talk about that. But, so like I said, in the very beginning, so I wired up, so really which wire is the wrong wire? C. So this wire is yellow wire here, okay? So I wired up C here next to the ground wire. It's like one over from the ground. That's actually C here, but that's actually chroma. That's not composite video. So this is not right. And it kind of made me freak out a little bit because, and I guess I could do it for ha-has. Let's just do it, right? So I'm going to leave this how it was. I'm just going to connect it, okay, right? So I'm just going to connect it here. I just want to go through all the steps that I did just to show you, or just to, you know, if this happens to you, you'll know you did a wrong thing like I did. So let's put the thing sort of together. Let's get this is the triad. I did have the reflex volt stuff going, but I wanted to remove all variables, so I just have my triad handy. So I've got power connected to the Merlin shop board. Next, I'm going to use my HD Retrovision cables. Now, remember I said currently it's still wired wrong on this console. I accidentally wired chroma to composite video. I mixed up C and V. If you know anything about S-Video, so S-Video is made of two components, so it's chroma and luma. But chroma, so and I guess another thing I'll mention, right? So I know a little bit about cables, about the different types of cables. So how the HD Retrovision cables work is HD Retrovision gets sync from composite video, not composite sync, composite video, right? So I don't know if there might be like a sync stripper or something inside of there, but it gets the sync of the video, which is a necessary component. If you have RGB video, which the HD Retrovision cables convert the RGB signals to component or I guess component video, YPBPR, by using those four values, so RGB and a sync value or composite sync. But it gets the sync from composite video because I guess the theory was maybe that was available maybe on more consoles than composite sync was. So right now it's not wired up correctly, right? It's not wired to composite video at all. And if you know a little bit about S-Video, Luma is actually the value, the data line that has the sync on it, right? Because Luma comes all the way from the good old days of original NTSC video, right? Luma is basically just black and white video. Black and white video was originally just black and white. That was sort of the beginnings of the NTSC color, or NTSC video, right? Was Luma, was just luminance values or black and white video. So it also has the sync as part of it, okay? Chroma is then the color information that gets added to the Luma to make color for S-video. But Chroma does not have sync on it. So this is hey Artemis. So I first had everything buttoned up, right? So I got we'll talk about flashing the firmware too, because I did also flash the firmware successfully. I basically used my setup from last week. I wanted to show off the mod first, but then we can backtrack and talk about all the other stuff. If people have questions, I can try to help you to do this yourself if you're interested in doing this, okay? But I sort of tried to race to this, right? So getting to make sure that it worked so that I had something to share with you guys today, okay? So it's still incorrect right now. And so this is how I'm like, okay, I do need my cartridge back. So let's grab my cartridge. So this is like, okay, I'm getting ready to test it for myself yesterday for the first time. So I've got everything connected, right? I got my cartridge just kind of floppy. And actually these slot masters or I guess if you had a Nintendo, it's the same thing. It's kind of nice because you don't really need to have the console sort of buttoned up. If you know anything about the original cartridge, the 72-pin on the NES, you basically are almost required to have your console screwed back together, or else it really won't make good connection. It might be a little bit loose. So I like these newer 72-pin connectors, and it would have been the same with the slot, the blinking light win, if you had one of those. Okay, so let's go over the camera, the capture, I mean. So this is I have to change the input. So currently the HD retrovision cables are in, right? So I would expect this, the RetroSync, the 4K, to be on input type RCA YPBPR, right? So this is what I expected to work yesterday. So then I go and I'm about to test it, right? So I turn it on. I've got a red light. I've got a power. There's an LED on the power board, the Merlin Shaw board, and I get nothing. I'm like, oh boy, that's not good. Oh, and then you get this. See this flashing? See, there's something. You see colors. I see colors. Sorry if you, it's like seizure warning or something. I'm sorry. This is pretty flashy. You can see stuff going. So occasionally it kind of gets some information. I turned it off. There's some stuff on the screen. So I knew there were signs of life, and I knew that the board was working. The Lava RGB was kind of working. And I'm like, okay, damn. Now what? How do I get this thing to work? Like, then I thought, okay, let me see if composite video is working, but I don't own a composite video cable like for the Genesis 2. Because remember, keep in mind that this is the NES companion that has the Genesis 2. This is the Genesis 2 connector on the companion. Okay. Here, so this is the Genesis 2 HD retrovision cable plugged into it. Okay, but I don't have that type of cable because I really never really needed it for testing, because the actual Genesis 2, like a Model 2 Genesis, Sega Genesis, outputs RGB. So you don't need a mod to do it. So yeah. So I'm like, okay, how do I test this now? Now, a little bit of quick thinking yesterday. I remembered that I also, back in the day before everybody was kind of switched to component video, I have a bunch of SCART cables, okay? So I actually do have a retro axis, a really nice retro axis. Somewhere up here it says made in Italy. These are like really high quality. Oh, right here it says made in Italy. That's the cable, not the actual retro axis. Doesn't live in Italy, I don't think. But it's Italian coax cable. It's really good quality stuff. So this is a RGB SCART cable, right? So it's RGBS video. So I'm like, okay, let me try this instead. Maybe I messed some. Maybe there's a problem with something. I don't know. So I just wanted to get a different, determine what is different about. Maybe something is different with this cable versus the HD retrovision cable. So I'm like, okay, let me fire it up, right? So now I've got to switch to, this is my SCART cable, my RGB SCART cable. So I've got to change to SCART input and RGBS. 75 ohm is just terminated, 75 ohm termination. I don't really know much about that, but yeah, that's kind of a standard thing for SCART. So I'm like, okay, let's try this, right? So I go ahead, I turn it on. Hey, this is me celebrating yesterday. Hey, right? So it's working. So I'm like, okay, let me get my controller in here. But this, you know, it's scuffed. There's some scuffs on this output, and we'll talk about it in a second. But it was working, and I was like, hell yeah. I was so pumped now. So really, that is all I have done to this system, other than flash the firmware, right? So I flashed the firmware before I did all this. I kind of skipped that section, but we'll get there. But it works, you know, it plays. I could play from the OBS preview. I got audio coming from the Merlin Shaw board. Oh, I want to talk about that because you do need to kind of set that up. But let me pause this for a second. So let's talk about a couple things, right? So before we go back to this video, before we get back to the output of this, okay, let me talk about what happened. So this is basically how I left it, and I'm like, okay, I'll explore it more on stream, right? I didn't want to spoil using it. That's why the Twitter screenshot I took about it working, I said success. I didn't show an actual game playing. I showed my EverDrive, which I couldn't really tell if the colors were wrong. So I just basically wanted to leave it until today to get this, you know, explore it more with you people, and not like, yes, it's very dark. Yeah, Obi-Wan noticed it. Okay, so let's go to the window capture and Voltar. Oh, this is kind of a side note. You guys won't have problems with this, or you people won't have, you folks, I guess, sorry, not trying to be gendered here, won't have a problem with this because I had a unique circumstance where the console, the PCB that I was trying to use, was the one that I had a de-jitter mod in, okay? So the de-jitter is from Marks, right? He made that mod. And to do the de-jitter mod, it actually moves the clock crystal from the board itself to the de-jitter board. Okay, so there's a little clock crystal. Actually, I can show you here. Just because I think people might be interested. This is kind of like legacy stuff that people don't really do anymore. But it was kind of all the rage when the OSSC, the original OSSC, was around. So this is the de-jitter mod, okay? It's underneath my NESRGB. Here's the little clock crystal that replaces the one that's on the board. And then you use these, I don't know, you wire this up here, right? So, but to do that de-jitter mod, you actually have to take the crystal off of the board, okay? So I forgot about that. So I'm like, why is this? Oh, so yeah, okay. So before I wasn't getting video at all. I wasn't getting anything. Actually, I was not even getting a power light for some reason, not having the clock connected. And also, you'll notice that there's these two capacitors as well. So C44 here and C45 are also removed, and there's a bridge, a wire bridge between them. That's kind of a unique thing for the de-jitter, okay? So you have to remove the clock crystal here and these two things. So basically I reversed that mod, which I'm gonna re-reverse because I want to put my NESRGB back together, you know, the way it was before, after I'm all done with this project. But in the meantime, I took the Bugtendo's clock crystal and these two capacitors, because eventually I'm gonna create a an open Tendo. Actually, I might do my necessity, because I have that necessity board and I've never populated it, so I might use necessity. But I want to have a new board for the Bugtendo. I'm going to replace the PCB. Okay, so I took the Bugtendo's guts. I took the crystal and the capacitor, and I put them in this board, and that's how I got this to work. So that's kind of an aside. You guys won't have to struggle with that, but I struggled with that because I forgot that happened. So that's kind of first. But then, so that's why that's what prompted this post here, this big oof kind of post here. So then Voltar commented. Okay, so he said he purchased one of these, and he's having some problems. Hopefully you guys can see this. The power LED is probably controlled by the CPU. Yeah, right. So no clock crystal, no CPU. The CPU is not started yet to even turn the thing on. Hi, kitty. Okay, so Voltar commented, I purchased one of these and having several problems. Okay, so he said I talked about this already. So the IGR basically will not work because it's not compatible with active high. So it's an active low thing for top. It would work with a top loader, I suppose, or the AV Famicom. But no, if you do a top loader and probably an AV Famicom, you need to use a little, it's sort of like a, I don't know what you call it, like you need another little PCB that's like it moves the NESRGB kind of a little bit. Okay, so well, that's fine. Okay, so problem 2 he was having. The chroma data couples into RGB. He had to cut out the S video and composite video, otherwise chroma noise would couple through the RGB outputs. Diagonal crosshatched lines. So, I don't 100% know if that is caused by the RGB amp itself or if that's a design flaw of the PCB, right? So I don't know if that means that this is a PCB design issue or it's a problem because that is because of the RGB amp that Retrocastle used. So we'll come back to this because this is going to be sort of apparent in the video output, but basically we have to solve a couple of problems on the board first before we revisit that. So then the 22 or 220 microfarad AC coupling capacitors aren't really 220 microfarad. They're more like 20 microfarad, and they do nothing to reject DC from passing through. So I don't know about exactly what that last part means, but I believe he bought these from AliExpress. So they do sell, there are some sellers that sell the Lava RGB on AliExpress, but I just went through PCBWay because there's my sponsor, yada, yada. Which, by the way, actually this is a good segue. Let's talk about my sponsor before we move on. So PCBWay. I pretty much do a lot of, oh God, I clicked the button. I do a lot of these open source projects, and I like to really take advantage of PCBWay to make the PCBs, right? So like I said earlier, I do like to populate the PCBs myself, right? So I have them, so I go to this PCB instant quote, and then I take the Gerbers and I go to quick order PCB and I upload the Gerbers. So let's see, do we have any, let's see what happens if I upload the Gerbers. Oh, that's the firmware. Diamond Programmer. Do I have it here? Probably not. Okay, well, that's a fail. So anyways, I would upload the Gerbers and then I'd be able to, you could fill out some other information. Usually I leave it alone unless I need to. And then, you just order some PCBs from PCBWay. Then I take the BOM, the bill of materials, and order that separately, usually through Mouser or DigiKey. And then when they all come, I populate them on stream. You guys have seen me do that a lot. But what I thought I would do this time is do something a little bit different and have PCBWay actually assemble the whole thing, or at least as much as they could. Now, I had never done this before, which is sort of interesting because they've sponsored the stream sponsored my channel for like 2 years. I was curious to how difficult it would be. And so you click on this assembly service, right? And there's a couple of different options, right? So there's kitted or consigned parts. I believe that means that you send them all the parts. And so if you already have a truckload of parts, you might send them to PCBWay already, so they don't have to source them. Or I guess there's a combo, right? So you have them supply some. This is what you might do with the, if you bought the RGB amp, you might use combo. But I chose turnkey. And some of this other stuff is not really. Oh, I don't remember. Actually, this is a dual-sided board, but I don't know if I ever selected both sides. Anyways, and then you select, contains sensitive parts. I think I put no. I don't think it has any. And do you accept alternative substitutes made in China? I guess. Does that mean clone things? I don't know. Then I really just said, that's it. I sent it. I just placed the order. Then, once you get in there, I don't want to pull this up really because I think it has my name in it. Once you place the order, it asks you for the bill of materials file, and I think it asks for. Let me actually just bring it up in the side here, and I'll kind of talk about it. It was not that difficult to get them the requests, the files that they need. I just want to make sure that I see what they sent, what communications they sent, and what I sent back. Okay, so I'll show this. this page here. I hope there's no crazy information here. But one of the requirements when you first place the order is you have to give them the Gerber file, which obviously is already uploaded when you submit the order, right? And then, get out of here, person. Then you have to send them the BOM, which is pretty simple, right? It's just a CSV, and it actually, I think, is in the list. It's in the RetroCastle files, I believe, the BOM. And then you have to give them this this CPL file, which I don't know what it is exactly, but I think that it's like a position file, right? So there's kind of three aspects to creating a custom PCB, right? So the Gerber is one, and that's really just everything that PCBWay needs to actually create the layout, or like the actual fiberglass, and like where the solder is going to go, where the traces are going to go, all that stuff. So that's this first file. That's aspect one, is like actually producing the PCB and drilling all the holes and stuff. So that's all handled in the Gerber file. The BOM file is actually the bill of materials file, is all of the parts that go onto the board. Then the last part is there's some sort of position. I don't know enough about this to kind of explain it well, but I knew that I had to give them this position file, right? So this is for their pick and place machine. This tells the pick and place machine where to place all the parts from the BOM and in what orientation to place them on the board. So it's just a CSV, but it's like, it has a position thing. So as long as you have these three things, which often projects don't have all three things, right? I talk about a lot of open source projects, but I don't really talk about, I don't really go through all the steps of actually ordering it. Usually it's like, okay, the BOM is there, or the Gerbers are there, just send it. You also do need the BOM, right? If you are going to build the board yourself, because that's how you're going to order all the parts to populate that board with. But I never really talk about this position file. So I think that might be in the, actually, let's just look. Well, anyways, we'll try to circle back to that in a little bit, but just know that I needed all three of these things to send to PCBWay so that they can actually, if you don't have the BOM and the CPL, I don't think, or the position file, I don't think you can really have them, you can't really have them, you can't expect them to be able to assemble it, right? Because they need those things. They're not going to do that work for you. Okay, so it's not enough to just have the Gerber file. You also need this position file and the BOM file. Okay, end of my little spiel. Thanks, PCBWay. But I figured I would give you guys a little bit more background about that aspect of creating the PCB. Okay, so where were we? Back to here. Thank you, PCBWay. CPL is place and position file for assembly. Okay. This is an add-on PCB, same as eTIM's NESRGB. There's another board already including PPC, PPU, and the RGB chips. The result is the same, but a benefit to keep the ejector function of cartridge. This is an add-on PCB, same as eTIM's. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's meant to do the same. DC coupling. I'm just looking at the back. Oh, hey, CO. Just looking at the back comments here. Okay. So let's start fixing the issues right now. Okay, so we noticed a couple things. Actually, I didn't really talk about them, but there's a couple of issues here. So let's try to blow this up. So the first thing, obviously, it's dark. Now, the reason it's dark is because the Sega Genesis, I think, I want to put an asterisk, I think it's every Genesis Model 2 cable. So that's the SCART cable that I've got, as well as the HD Retrovision cables that I've got. They are going to be darker because the cables already have these 75 ohm resistors, and there's those 220 microfarad capacitors that Voltar was talking about. Okay, so both of these cables that have the HD Retrovision and the SCART cables from Retro Axis, they have those components in the cable already. So that's what kind of makes the NESRGB sort of cable, and the Lava RGB, I suppose, cable dependent. Okay, so you need to kind of customize the board depending on what cables that you're going to use. Okay, so that is basically, we've got double the amount of resistance, and that's why the values are basically too low. Not dangerous, it's not dangerous for it to be low, but just know that it's not, this is not correct. It's because we have two sets of resistors now. I don't know if the capacitance has anything to do with it, but we also shouldn't have the capacitors as well. But it's possible that the capacitance is so low that it's not making a difference, but we'll fix that. So that's the first issue is with the color. Now the second issue that Voltar was talking about, the cross hatching, I don't know if you guys can see it. I can see it on my end. Let me try to make this even bigger. Enhance. If you look at the blue, it's very, very apparent that there is, and I'm not using any special settings on the RedHerring, right? So this is basically stock settings, whatever. I haven't done anything with, I don't know, there might be some low pass filtering you could do to get rid of these things. But you could tell that there's these, I guess I'll call them jail bars, but they're not really jail bars. I think it's what Voltar was talking about, and that is the RGB is, what did he say specifically? He said something fancy. Coupled. The RGB is coupled to the chroma data. So that is I think that's what we're looking at here. Now I don't think, Voltar said something about cutting out the chroma and luma. I don't know where you would have to do that. Would you do that on the RGB amp? We can kind of mess with that, but that's not in the scope of this. That's not in the scope of this video. Okay. But right now I want to address, first of all, first thing I'm going to try is I want to get my HD retrovision cables working, which means that I need to move the chroma video. Sorry, this is the most ridiculous way of making this small again. I want to move the wire from chroma to composite video. So that's the first oops that I made. Okay, so let's do that now. I think I should be able to keep kind of everything the way it is. Let's go back to overhead. Okay. I just need to take this out, and I need to move this yellow wire over a little bit. So let's get my iron on. So ironically, if I had missed, let's say I had missed, right? And if I had placed that wire, which is composite video, on the Merlin Shaw board, if I had placed that on Y instead, which is actually Luma, if I placed the C onto the Luma signal, it would have worked because there's a composite sync signal on Luma. But I missed, or I didn't miss. I just made a mess up. I thought C was composite video, but C is chroma. But if I had it on Luma, it would have still worked, I believe. I'm not going to test that theory, but yeah, science. Okay, so what I really need is V. So let's solder V. This is not gonna fix the darkness, but we can switch back to the HD retrovision cables, which I think more people are gonna have, or more people are gonna use. So that's how I'm gonna kind of, we're gonna go head off from there. Okay, so let's test that. So let's test the theory. Well, it's not a game theory. This is I think is actually the problem with the that part. All right, so let's flip this beast over. Like I said, the reason I can't, like, the pin header on the top of the Lava RGB is causing it so that I can't put the thing. Also, because this is a Genesis 2 cable, there actually is not enough room, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but you will have to modify the case here. This is the hole that the Genesis 2 cable will go into. Both of the Genesis 2 cables that I've got, they will not fit, and they won't make good contact if you try to do that. So if you try to fit it through the hole, the standard hole. So I probably would recommend just drilling out a big hole, but you'd have to make it a really big hole to fit around the shielding. So in some ways it's no cut, and in other ways it's not really no cut. But that actually might just be a problem with the SCART cable, because the SCART cable has these big chonkers on it, but the HD retrovision cable is kind of slim. So this might be a better, you might have to modify it less to get the HD retrovision cable to work. So let's just test it, right? Let's test the, so I gotta go back to here. I need to switch from SCART to YPBPR, and then cross your fingers, right? Hey, the color is better too. What the what? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I don't know what that means. Maybe there is a light little level thing on the like a switch. Let me see if I can try to get this into. What happens if I flick that? Oh yeah, there we go. I guess the HD Retrovision guys thought of this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. On the HD Retrovision cable itself, it's covered up by stock, okay? But there's this little, sorry, PCBWay is in the way. You can go live over there, PCBWay. There's this little thing, the sun thing. You could toggle that back and forth. That actually, maybe that disables or bypasses or not bypasses the resistor values, right? So if we go back to the recording and the capture, the thing is one way, okay? The switch is one way. But then I switch to the other way, it's dark. Ooh. So I suppose you could get away with it, right? Maybe you wouldn't need to modify anything if you're happy with the noise, if you have HD Retrovision cables. Well, not that you're happy with it, I don't think we're gonna be able to get around the noise, but you could get away with the HD Retrovision, or get away with not removing anything, I think, if you've got the HD Retrovision cables. One thing to note at the very top, you can see at the very top of the video, there is actually the jitter issue. You can see at the very, very top of the screen. Auto gain on the Tink can do similar. Maybe, but I don't know. It might do good, but I think you might be crushing some colors, right? Because you're losing like half of your color values. So it probably wouldn't look as good. It probably could work, but with basically you're creating a voltage divider, or yeah, basically I think you're having the color, the values on your RGB lines. So that's why it's like maybe not quite half as bright, but darker. So, what do you guys want to see? Do you want me to try to remove the resistors and the capacitors? Because I think Zaxor told me that that's what I could do, right? To get this to kind of always be bright no matter what cable I use. Or, well, okay, I guess I didn't talk about the noise enough, right? So, I think that I agree. Let me see, is there a better way to do this? Can I just transform? How do I zoom in? Let's see. Transform? No. Edit transform? Well, I don't know how to do this. Show transition? No. Blending mode. Scale filtering? No. Okay, I don't know. Basically, the best that I have is to just make it bigger. So I think, let me just verify that the noise is showing up on these HD Retrovision cables. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, some colors look better than others. Let me actually just put this on my, let me put it on my OLED too so that I can look at that. So, okay, I didn't really notice any issues with latency. I don't necessarily see any problems on that part of it. So what that means in my mind is this is a totally usable mod, right? If you wanted to just mess around, like experiment or learn from it. Actually, I want to talk a little bit about where I see this project being beneficial, but I kind of wanted to just address this noise issue for sticklers, and I guess in a nutshell, I can't necessarily recommend it versus the NESRGB. If you are going to spend the money and you want the best of the best, there's no doubt right now that this is not a replacement for the NESRGB. Now, Voltar seems to think that this is a clone of the NESRGB, which, yes, remove them. Okay, I'll remove the pieces and we'll see what that does. But I don't think it's going to ever remove this noise. I did say I was going to look at it on my screen. So it's pretty apparent, like I have a 4K scaler, right? It's pretty apparent. I mean, if you were sitting down at your couch or something, you wouldn't really be able to see the noise. But if you're like me and you have a giant OLED, you know, with really nice colors, excuse me, and you're sitting right in front of it, right? You're gonna notice it's like jail bars, right? So if jail bars are something that bothers you, then this is gonna bother you also. So I can't necessarily recommend it for perfectionists, or like if you already have a RedHerring 4K or something, like you want the best of the best. You're not gonna. This is not the mod to go with over the NESRGB. It is technically open source, Sean. Your mod should always be set up to conform. Yes, Artemis, I agree, and that's what I want to do. I guess if you are somebody who wants to mess around, but by mess around I mean like, oh, I have a second console. Let me just see what this Lava RGB thing is all about. But you really don't want to get your hands dirty. I think that this is actually okay because, well, actually you do have to solder the RGB amp, unless you provide that to PCBWay for them to do it. But you already should probably be pretty technical to get the Lava RGB, I think, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You kind of have to know what you're doing already. So it's not necessarily like, oh yeah, this is an easy, like I guess if somebody else did it for you and gave you one, sure, right? If your buddy was doing it for themselves just because they wanted to mess around, but they had they set one up for you and sent it to you for like as a budget thing or a gift or something, sure, no problem. Like, and all you had is HD retrovision cables. Again, like I said, that's very particular to this power board, because this power board, and let me undo the noise thing. Let me undo my size thing again. That's particular to my console because I'm using the Merlin Shaw's board. If you had a multi-out, that's not going to absolve you of the noise, but you're going to have to alter the board in different ways. Okay, so I need to alter the board, the Lava RGB board, because the RGB lines on the cable already have the resistors and the capacitors that the board does. So that's why it's dark. But with the HD retrovision cables, you can bypass it pretty easily, and it looks fine. Decent enough, I suppose. I can't tell you it's good for the health of your console, maybe, or for the health of the scaler, but from this 5 minutes, whatever I've been sitting here, and it's just been running, it's fine. I like, okay, don't sue me or anything. Don't. This is not an endorsement to go do this thing and like blow up your console or whatever. I'm just saying, I don't know. Don't listen to me then. Don't do it. If you're on your own. You're under your own sort of guidance, I suppose. Whatever. Don't blame me for anything. But it would probably be fine. So to answer Sean and me's point and sort of the future of the Lava RGB, I'm going to turn the console off and get to modifying it underneath. I see, so I have been talking to, okay, actually this kind of goes along hand in hand with, is this a clone? Is this actually a clone of the NESRGB? And I've been talking with ManCloud. If you don't know who ManCloud is, ManCloud helped to create the shield of the Game Boy Advance HD consoleizer that ZWENRG made. So ZWENRG built, he wrote this FPGA code for, I can't remember what it's called now, but that's, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's this consoleizer. Actually, there's a bigger Game Boy Advance one too, but this is the GBA HD SP. So this is a Game Boy consoleizer that uses the Game Boy Advance SP. So this is it. This is the whole console. If you've never seen this before, right? There's an FPGA dev board at the bottom here. I don't remember really much about what it's called, but so ZWENRG wrote the FPGA code, right, that runs in the thing. But ZWENRG built this other kind of top hat. I think it's a shield that goes on top of the FPGA dev board, but it has the Super Nintendo port on it, I believe, and the audio, and I think that's it. And the top you're actually seeing is the Game Boy board, SP board is in the top here. So ManCloud helped ZWENRG to develop this thing. Okay, so part of it, the dev board. Okay, so ManCloud was saying that this project, he's very busy, right? So I'm not really expecting anything from him. He didn't mention it. He was gonna like, do anything. He just said he was gonna look into it maybe. But this project, the Lava RGB project, kind of got him thinking about things, right? Stuff that he can do. Lava uses different logic. Yes, kind of, yes. So I asked, so I'll just leave it at that. ManCloud kind of is getting ideas based, because of this board existing. I don't know if he's necessarily going to alter the Altium files, because is that what it is? Altium? That's the PCB design software that Retrocast used, but it's also like $5,000, so I can't use that. I think there is some sort of an import program where you can take this. I'm going to just unplug this here. And the good part about using the Merlin shop board is this, right? So, I want to work on my NESRGB. There it is, right? So that's really cool. That's one of the coolest parts about that. So now I can work on that. Okay, so just know maybe ManCloud might be working on. He might do something in the future. He mentioned something about LumaCode. He might be, I don't know if that's. I'm not holding him to that, but LumaCode is this kind of newer thing that it's sort of like. It's not necessarily HDMI, but it's like digital signaling coming out of an original console. And if you've seen, there's a video floating around somewhere where you can actually like hijack the RF port. So it's like a serial connection using the RF port. So then that connects to I think the OSSC is a device that can decode LumaCode, but there's also the RGB to HDMI thing that I talked about a while ago for retro computers. Here it is. I believe this can also decode LumaCode. Okay, so I built this actually for retro computers, but I think this also can decode LumaCode. So LumaCode is basically, I think it's a serial digital video output, right? That you can wire up to some kind of a device. So like the OSSC, I think, can decode it. Not the OSSC Pro, but just the normal OSSC, which a lot of people might have already. And I think also this device can do that. But just know that's another way to get digital video output from a console. So it's not analog to digital, it's digital to digital, right? So that's LumaCode. So I think ManCloud might be working on something to do with LumaCode and this. So I want to talk about, is this a clone? To me, again, another disclaimer. I'm not I'm not an electrical engineer. I didn't go to school for that. I'm a computer programmer, okay? So that's my background is in software, not hardware, electronic hardware. The Lava RGB and the newer NESRGBs do three things, okay? There's the obvious, how do you get RGB video out of the NES's PPU, which was never designed to have RGB output, right? So the PPU outputs composite video, not RGB. So how do you do that? How do you get RGB output from the thing? I was talking to ManCloud, and he was saying that the protocol, right? So like it's not software, but it's like, I guess it's kind of like you could use it. So he mentioned that it's in like Mr. Cores, or there's like an open source, I don't know, are there open source Mr. Core, or yeah, I guess there are, right? Open source FPGA. So I guess maybe like the the analog pocket, or there is the Nest Tang, which is using that Tang Nano, one of those Tang Nano boards. I would like to check that out eventually. So it's kind of like a limited Mr., right? So it's like a single console Mr. And the Nest Tang is specific to the NES. So it's a NES FPGA emulation box that I don't know if it can do cartridges. I don't think it does. But so he was telling me, kind of in layman's terms, the protocol, or like the code, I suppose, not the like actual code, but the idea of how do you get in FPGA language. He actually reminded me that the original NESRGB was written in a CPLD and not an FPGA. I don't know how different that is. Actually, the newer NESRGBs they also use Lattice FPGAs, so that makes it more similar. That's what made me think that, okay, maybe they're like, I was just trying to suss out, is it possible that Retrocastle took code maybe from this? That's the only thing that I would consider it a clone, other than maybe the shape of it and the placement. Because the placement of some of these components, you know, whether or not you need them in any kind of a design or not, it's pretty the same. I'll just show you what the NESRGB 4 looks like. So, you know, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with like, oh, you know, the shape of a thing and where components are on a thing means it's an exact clone, right? Inspired by it, sure. Oh shit, I don't need to throw that out. Come back. I threw out the, there we go, the packaging. But if you look at an NESRGB, I mean, actually the older ones are worse. They're more similar. So this is a 2.0 NESRGB. The layout and stuff of some of the components is strikingly similar. Like, oh sorry, my overhead lights. So like, these three components here and these three components are here. They're the same components. I don't know if that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, the layout of these components here is different, but the location of so this is a CPLD in the NESRGB, this is an FPGA. So it's not strictly like let's somehow extract the CPLD firmware and dump it on this. I don't think that's what's happening here. But that still doesn't mean that they didn't might take some code from here. I guess what I'm trying to say is ManCloud sort of reassured me that the code or the idea, right, of how to extract the RGB output from the PPU is sort of a known thing. Okay, it's not strictly limited to Tim Worthington's knowledge anymore. Maybe at one point it might have been, but now it's in a whole bunch of Mr. Cores and things. I hope that I'll get to you. I'll get with you in a second, Ryan. I want to talk about yeah. Hold on. Let me read. Altium. If it's a different program, then it's a different product. Am I missing something? No, I agree that, like, I guess I was just trying to give maybe Voltar the benefit of the doubt that, you know, is it possible that this may be a clone? So actually, the lattice on the NESRGB 4 is bigger, so it's a different FPGA. So, but like I said, ManCloud assured me that the logic, I suppose, I guess is a better word than what I was saying, protocol. The logic of how you use an FPGA to emulate the functions of the PPU. That's the reason that that is the reason that RedHerring doesn't like the NESRGB, is because he believes that it's emulation, because you're taking some of the functionality of the PPU and recreating it, even if it's just one little thing. It's essentially it's no longer a stock console in his opinion. So that's the first function in the NESRGB, is how do you get RGB output from a PPU? That's a known thing at this point, I guess, and that you can have it running on an FPGA. Okay, so that's the first thing, is getting digital RGB out of the PPU. The second thing that an NESRGB or the Lava RGB does is convert the digital RGB signal to analog, right? So that's how you get these signals up here. I don't know enough about this part of it, but RedHerring says that the NESRGB uses something called a resistor ladder. I don't really know what that is at all. But he says that that's how the NESRGB does the digital analog conversion, I think. Maybe it's more complicated than that, but I'm going to leave it at that. Versus the Lava RGB uses this RGB chip. Now, like we saw with the noise in the video output, that's the reason why I think that it's not, you know, it's not better than the NESRGB. It's worse than the NESRGB, even if it's slightly worse, right? Not like, it's not terrible, right? It's not unplayable. And we'll get to removing the components to see if it makes the brightness better with the SCART cable. But so that's the second thing that this board does, and that is distinctly different than the NESRGB. I've been assured by RedHerring, and that's the only reason really that I thought that this is an interesting project, and at first glance, you might think that this is a clone, right? It's just trying to be an NESRGB, you know, besides functionality, but like they're like, let's try to cash in on what the NESRGB does, like and steal from it, right? That's not what this is doing. So this is a distinctly different DAC, digital analog thing, right? The third thing that this does, which we can't even test out because this was designed for the active low consoles, is the IGR and palette switching, which again, Bordy also designed an open source variant of an IGR mod. So Voltar made one, but I don't know if it's based on Bordy's, but Bordy has one that's open source that's available. Okay. So that's another thing that the Lava RGB actually does it inside of the FPGA, the ManCloud was telling me, versus the NESRGB actually uses an additional. So let's take a look at the NESRGB 4.0. And that's the first version. Actually, maybe the 3.0 had it too. But the NESRGB 4 uses a little microcontroller right here. So it's a separate, so there's an FPGA here, but it also uses a microcontroller. This microcontroller handles the IGR on the NESRGB. So again, that's a function that is the same, right? So it's IGR and palette switching that the Lava RGB does differently, but even if it's the same functionality. So I hope that's enough of a case for people to understand that this project is not trying to be like like theft. This is not like theft, in my opinion, right? My whatever humble opinion and my uneducated, you know, just by talking with, you know, RedHerring and ManCloud, that this is a different, you know, it's written separately. I hope that's enough of a defense. I think that a lot of people in the chat are kind of on board with that. Okay, so let me go back and read. So Castlemania Games said Nestang is the SNES Tang in one now. Yeah, okay. I think OSSC can decode directly without the RGB to HDMI. Everything can use it with the RGB to HDMI. Okay. Castlemania says, if you write your own logic, I kind of feel like it's your take on a novel design, not a clone. Okay, yeah. I think that maybe you could argue that they should have laid the board out differently, maybe, right? Because there's nothing that says, oh, you know, these vias up here have to be up here. Excuse me, I don't think that's true. Okay, so I need to get working on this, removing these components. If you have any more questions about things, yeah, let me know. Let's see, alterations. Those 3 ICs are level shifters and are required to, no, alterations said that. Castlemania says, does it improve on or offer different features at all? I would say no. The improvement is that it's cheaper and that it's open source. I don't think they copied the code. You would either have to have the source. Yeah, so I did kind of look up and see, you know, how difficult is it to dump CPLD firmware or code that runs on it, and I don't think it's that easy. The same thing with an FPGA. Even if you had the latest NESRGB, I think it's particularly difficult to dump the bit stream. So from what I've read, I don't think you copied the code. You would either have to have the source of the NESRGB or decompile a POF file and recode it for a different FPGA platform. Those 3 ICs are level shifters, so talking about these 3, and are required to convert the NES 5-volt logic to the 3-volt 3. Okay, so that is pretty much unavoidable because, as far as I know, most modern components, even, you know, semi-modern components, use 3 volts, 3.3 volts, or otherwise known as CMOS, or is it TTL? I think it's CMOS, right? It's 3 volts. TTL is 5 volts. So they operate on 3 volt CMOS logic levels. And the best place to put those is right next to the PPU. Okay, yeah, I agree. Probably not very far. So this is kind of just luck of the draw, these components here. There's also this up here, which is, I think that's what? Is that a voltage regulator? That's really, Artemis says that it's really not surprising. Those components are level shifters. Oh, okay, we just talked about that. They'd naturally be in the same. Sorry, I'm like pretty far behind, but I want to address the comments here. So Artemis pretty much said the same thing that Alteration said. Ryan Castlemania Games says it's definitely possible, but if it's a feature, or if the features are different at all, then it's certainly its own thing. So the problem is the features aren't really. I guess the feature that in RedHerring's mind is that it uses an RGB amp instead of that resistor ladder. Now I don't know. Obviously, in this particular case, this board layout maybe or something, it's actually worse than how the NESRGB is done. Yeah, NESRGB uses a resistor ladder DAC. The actual DAC should be more accurate. Something else is causing interference. Yes, I agree. So that's in my opinion, then it's a board layout problem, not a component selection problem, I think. You have too many NESRGBs? Yeah, I do, probably. Sean spitting facts. Okay, I think it's cool, fun project that you can populate yourself and make on a day or weekend out of it. Yeah, so the other thing is the Altium files, so the actual design, the PCB design files, so that would be like, okay, the KiCad or the KiCad files are available. But you know, that's the Altium file. So if you have Altium, great. But I think there is some kind of an importer where you can import Altium file design files into KiCad or KiCad, so that you can go and edit it yourself. So I think that's what kind of got ManCloud excited. It was because maybe some of this board layout stuff is sort of handled already, right? So ManCloud wouldn't have to do some of the design work, right? So maybe he'll alter, you know, he said he might work on something. So if he did, or anybody, let's say anybody wanted to work on it, Voltar, or you, if you're watching this and you're like an FPGA dev, CEO maybe, CEO, you know, is not busy. This, I don't know, it's an interesting project, I think. Let's say you wanted to create an HDMI output instead. So instead of having a DAC, you might have an HDMI output instead. Or okay, sorry, not HDMI, because that's a license thing, but digital video output, DVI, or DVI output. You could put DVI output in this or something, you know, instead. So like some of the work is done for you. And I guess, I don't know if the FPGA code is available either. So this is kind of two different parts. Like in order for this project to be considered open source, you would have to have obviously the PCB design files, which are the Altium files, but then you also need the firmware that runs on this. I didn't really talk about how to flash it. Does anybody want me to do that, or do you want me to do the component removing stuff? Because I would rather do that. There's documentation that Retrocastle has that tells you how to wire this up, and you basically just run the program. The thing that you have to know, and the thing that I couldn't do last time, was that this board, the Lava RGB board, has to be powered for it to be able to, for you to be able to flash it. So in my case, I don't have a bench power supply. I think Alteratius mentioned that this pin at the top here, this top left pin of the PPU, if you put 5 volts on that bad boy from like a bench power supply, or I guess you could just splice a USB cable or something, if you powered the board with 5 volts there, you could flash the firmware without needing it to be installed in the console. But I just did I don't know if this is Macho or whatever, I just installed it into the console itself, and then when you power on the NES, then you can flash the firmware while it's on. KiCad. Make everyone mad to call it KiCad. Somebody got mad at me for calling it KiCad, so they're like, it's KiCad. so I'm not sure. I got gaslit, and so I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So yes, I think that the future of this is interesting. Whether Retrocastle are going to fix it or are going to do anything or not, I don't know. But it's the basis, I believe, it's the basis of anybody able to create a mod or update or alter this mod to be better than it currently is. Okay, so I want to bring up a diagram. So now I'm going to work on removing the resistors and capacitors and stuff to get the brightness to be lower. Okay, so pretty much the reason why I know this stuff, what to do, is because Zaxor talked about it this morning in the chat, in my Discord chat, and I'll pull that up. Let me do one of these, get some water actually, because I've been talking nonstop. Delicious water. Okay. So then let me bring Discord over here. Not Key, not Kai, but K. But K. It's not KCAD. Get out of here with that. There's an I in it. That's funny. I didn't even really use it. Okay, I didn't really play it. So let's power through this. Okay. So Zaxor sent this picture. Okay. The things that we need to be concerned with is okay. So for both the SCART cable, so I'm not going to do anything with the S video. I'm not going to touch that, and I'm not going to touch composite video either. Okay. So I'm not going to change anything. Zaxor mentioned this 0.1. I don't know what that means, but he mentioned that you could alter the chroma up here. Also, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to alter the B, G, and R RGB down here. So what he says is you bridge. This diagram sort of maybe doesn't explain it, but like we're going to remove both the resistors, the 3 resistors here, and the 3 capacitors here, because those components are in either of the Genesis cables that I'm using. So, but if you're using a SNES multi-out cable, he mentioned in here, where did he mention it? Here, he mentioned if you're using a Nintendo cable, it already has the capacitors in there for RGB, so you just remove the capacitors and you bridge the capacitor pads. But because the Genesis cables, he was saying here, have both the 75 ohm resistor and the 220 microfarad caps, that is the reason that we're going to remove both of those. Now, he said you can jump, so it's just short RGB line straight across. I don't think that that's what he means. I think that he means we got to find which of the resistor pads is the source of the video output from the DAC, and we need to find which of the capacitor pads is the output that goes to the video output of the connector, so our Genesis 2 thing, and we just need to put a wire between those. So I'm going to get some silicone wire out. I don't know if we need to have like a big, I don't know how big these cables need to be. These wires need to be. I have 30 gauge. Does anyone out there knows if 30 gauge is fine? But I have bigger. I have 28 gauge. I got 26 gauge. I've got 24 gauge. Does anybody out there want to make a comment about what gauge they think I should use? How about 20? How about 26 gauge? That should be all right. You could remove them or just put a wire from the left of the, yes, that's what I figured, that alterations. Okay. Got it. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's switch over to the cam. Do I need I don't think I necessarily need the microscope to do this, but it probably would help you guys to see it better. So I'm going to do that. So let's get our microscope out. And let's turn off the overhead light because it always makes weird lights. And let's turn this on. Yay! Oh, we're kind of riding high though because we've got this, right? Because we've got the things here. So it's going to be kind of, a little bit higgledy-piggledy. As Dave Jones would say, it's a little bit how you doing. So I'm going to show you the easy way. So we're going to do an easy way to remove these things here. The resistors should be easier than the capacitors, I think, in my opinion. So I've got a little tiny knife edge. Okay, so this is not the big knife edge that I had before, but this is a little tiny one. So I've got this. I've got no bases, but say 28 should be good. I got 26. That's fine. That's what I pulled out, so I think we're good. All right, so you take some stuff. My iron is at 380. I think that might be too high, but YOLO. So to remove these surface mount resistors, it should be pretty easy, right? So what we do is we put you put solder on both ends, and then you want to heat them up at the same time. Actually, that was really easy because I have a knife edge tip, and that's like overpowered. So then we do the same with these 3. So these are the 3 for RGB. So the knife edge tip is kind of the way to go with this sort of thing. I always put the components aside just in case you ever want to reuse them, but I think it's pretty easy to find 75 ohm capacitors, or sorry, resistors. So that was R, G, and now B. I suppose if you were a real badass, you would do the thing where you disconnect them and leave the components on the board, like you flip them around. Or just have them connected on one end. Okay, so that was the easy part. Now I think the difficult part is actually going to be these capacitors, because they're kind of, I don't know actually, let's see. So I'm going to try to attempt the same thing, okay? So like, put some solder on that side. I'm going to like really blob it up, and then the same thing on the other side, right? Really blob it up. And then we need to try to heat up both at the same time. Oh, I did it. Hey, that was easy. Nice, overpowered. Knife edge. Okay, so let's move along to this other one here. Yay, see you later. All right, last one. I know the focus might be kind of sus, but I can't make it go higher than that right now. Oh, I can kind of do that. There you go. Okay, whew. This, and one of those. See you later. All right, so that's part one, is remove the components. Now, I think, so basically what I think the resistors is like a pass-through, right? So basically what that means is, I can see it, but maybe you guys can't. Oh, if I hold it like that, you can, okay? Excuse me, oh man, I got gas. If you look at these three, so this trace, and that trace, I hope you can see these 45-degree traces, right? They're coming from the DAC, okay? They're connecting directly to these first pads here on this thing, okay? Now, the resistor is kind of like a bridge between these two pads, okay? So I don't think, this doesn't really connect to ground or anything. This is just kind of like, I think actually this pad just connects to this pad. But now the thing I don't know is that do capacitors always need to connect to ground, or are these not connected to ground? So either of these connected to ground. So like, are these two, these are connected together, and then these get bridged by the capacitor, I think, right? So I know I'm just talking sort of out of my butt. I'm going to replace, actually, I'm getting rid of my knife edge tip. I'm going to switch back to the chisel tip so that we can, actually, now that I'm looking at these pads, maybe the wire that I have here is not the best idea. Ooh, I actually have R, G, and B colored wire. So let me get my wire thing. Stripper? Wire stripper? Words? I just say the thing. Get the thing. Don't exactly know how long these wires need to be. I don't know. Oops, sorry. I don't know. This probably need to be even shorter than this, but let's just this is one side, that's fine. Let's tin that. This is why I don't know if I see, these pads are like huge. I do need to cut this down a bit. Yeah. I don't want to like take all of this length, but like maybe that. Okay, then let's do the other side. Okay. Okay. Now let's get my thing here. Ah! Oh no! Oh, the wire fell on my keyboard. Whew, that was a close one. Okay. So I need my liquid flux, which is hiding behind there. I believe you need to bridge the sides. Yeah, so like basically I need to bridge this first pad with the top pad up there. That's my goal right now. Bypassing all the stuff. I suppose if I had the patience, I could take the flux off of there, but I don't have time. Ain't nobody got time for that. My wire fell into my keyboard again. Okay, we're back. Okay, so get some little flux on here. Boop. Okay. And then we'll do this. Actually, no, I don't want to touch that because that's very, very short. So get your tweezers out when you do this, if you're going to do this. Ah. Well, this might be a little sus. That's right, my air conditioner's on and I don't want to turn it off right now because it's hot. I don't know if these are going to be too long, but this is just how I'm going to do it. You guys can do it however you want. I'm going to try to get them all the same sort of length here. Ah, God. Caps sit on the path of a trace. Ugh, I had this. Ah, God. I had this little thing here. Okay. You could use a resistor like, yeah, but it probably doesn't matter if it's bridged all together, right? Well, we're gonna try this, and if this doesn't work, then I don't know. So that's one. That's R. So now I just gotta do the same thing with G and B. Well, that's the thing. I don't necessarily know that the other pad's in the middle, so I think I'm pretty confident that the resistor doesn't like go to ground or something, but I don't know if one of these capacitor legs goes to ground. I don't know. I don't know enough to know yes or no about that. So that's why I'm hesitant about directly soldering all four wires together, or all four pads together with like a component leg or something. Ooh, you know what I could do for ha-has? Hey, hello. Ah. Hey, hello. Okay. So this is not short enough. Oops, that's big now. Hold on a minute, sorry. Oh my God, I pulled the wire out. Look at that, that's a fail. Sorry, I'm trying to hurry my butt up and get this so that we can show the video. I didn't really play it, but I kind of showed it when I was showing off the noise. So I hope everyone believes me that it actually works. It's just noisy. Oh no, is that too short now? Oh no, this is too short. Jesus. So I just need to make it a little longer than that one. I'm working as fast as I can. I assure you, I'm sorry. I'm trying. Unsubscribe. No! You guys can just see the shadow of what I'm doing. Not even what I'm doing. Okay. Ouch. That hurt. Okay. Rotate. Okay, so this one is G. Not super satisfied with those joints, but I don't care. Just want this to get soldered so that we can test it again. Okay, so now this one goes to that one. Okay. Groovy. Nice. Okay, now we need a B. Getting there, almost. Ow! Remember to just be careful with this, because these short wires you could, ow, really burn your fingers. Okay. I do it for you guys. Stupid. Okay, sits in that, boom. Okay, B. Okay. Ah. Let me get a little more angle on that. Man, this is annoying. Okay, let me retin that pad. Okay. Okay. Last but not least is that little guy right there. This is the one that's going to be hard, huh? Okay, well, not great soldering. These joints are, I mean, it's fine. The joints are fine. It's just, well, the problem is the stupid air conditioner too. I blame the air conditioner for all things. I'm just not happy with that last one. So let me redo that last one. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, fine. Got stupid little butt cheek wires, whatever. I don't know if the length of these wires is going to make a difference, but, or the fact that they're touching each other makes a difference. Don't know. Okay, let's clean this off. I guess I can clean it a little bit with some IPA, huh? Okay, so I should be done with this. And let's actually test it a little bit. That's some thick jumper wire? Yeah, whatever. Shut up. Yeah, the 30 gauge would have been better, probably. You're right. Where's my... Oh. Doesn't need to be great. Okay, so now this board is going to be all sticky, but that's fine. Okay. Gotta make sure that all this evaporates before we turn the console on. Oh, I guess I can turn my overhead light on again. Ugh, yeah, I just spread the flux all over. I need to make some of that that Voltar goop. I actually need to invest in a ultrasonic cleaner. Okay, so that's what I'm sticking with, right? So it's just bridging the far left pin, far left pad on the 75 ohm resistor, and the far right pad on those 220 microfarad capacitors. So just straight through, no capacitance or resistance, because I'm using the Genesis 2 cables that have them in it already. So I hope that's clear. I hope everyone understands that that's the reason I'm doing that. If you have Nintendo cables, if you're using a multi-out instead, and this applies to, well, actually, I don't know if the NESRGB still does this, but you have to remove the capacitors only. Okay, so I've got this. Bring back the console. Flip this bad boy over. Connect it. So the other thing I need to do is I need to actually disconnect. I have to take the socket out. Okay, so now this, and actually this console could probably use a recap. I actually recapped the bug tendo. I'll probably take the recap bug tendo capacitors and put them on this console. It doesn't need it, I don't think, but you know, just cause. Okay, so now let's flip. Now, what should we test? I guess we'll test the Genesis, the HD Retrovision, because it has that switch, right? So now the switch should make it be too bright or just right? Oh, you've been listening to Stream Beats at work or for work? Oops, maybe I shouldn't have plugged it in before I plugged this part in, but YOLO. Got cart. Okay, I don't know what the heck that was about, but cart is plugged in. All right. Also, if anybody knows if there are replacement buttons, the buttons on this console are finicky. The power button, especially. So I want replacement buttons. All right, so let's go to capture. We're already set to YPPR. Excuse me. All right, let's test it, right? Hey. Okay, so which direction is the wire? Is this the dark wire? So if I do this, it'll be too bright, right? Is this correct? now. That is too bright, right? I don't know. I didn't keep track of which was which. But I can switch to the SCART cable, right, and see what the SCART cable looks like. Because the SCART cable was definitely too dark. Then we gotta switch to SCART. Okay, turn it on. Does that look right, everybody? I'm not using any HDR features on the 4K. So that is what the video is. I sort of wish that I had my... Also, does it look like the noise is more apparent? Not really. It looks probably similar. GG's on butt cheek wire. But is this correct? Is this the correct? No, this is the SCART, right? So this is everything going from the SCART cable. I wish I had my multi-out. I guess I can get my multi-out system, right? So let's get my multi-out system. So let's turn the SNES on, the Extron on. Okay, so let's turn this off. Where'd the multi-out at? Oops. Let's plug Mario in because I guess that's a good baseline, right? Shit, do I have another Mario? Can I switch back and forth between Mario and Mario? Hey, I can. Super Mario Bros. Yeah. Okay, so in goes Super Mario Bros. In that system. I actually can switch back and forth now between the SCART on this. Ugh, come on. This power cable, the power button sucks on this. Okay, now I actually do need my retro access, no. What is it called? The USB power delivery cable thing from Mr. Add-ons, whatever that's called. Derpy derp derp. Reflex volt. I have words. Okay, so this one is for the NES front loader and top loader. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is still the bug, no, not the bug tendo, but the Lava RGB. And I wish that the frickin' analog bridge was around because then I could actually like compare these together. Okay, so let me get my multi-out cable. Okay, multi-out. I just want to see if the brightness is the same compared to my NES RGB system. Okay, so let's swap a dop to, actually let's do that. Why is the button, the LED color is different? Okay, so let's go to, okay, so we should be able to tell right away, is the color different? Nope. Oh, it's a little different, but it could be the palette, but the light color looks, or the brightness is about the same. I think the only difference is the palette. Which palette did I flash? The NTSC and PC10, the PlayChoice 10 one. So does that mean there's only two palettes? I'm not sure. It's a little dark. It's a palette thing, I think. So this is the Lava RGB. It's got like just a weird palette. I don't really love this palette. And then this is the NESR, whatever. I don't know which NESRGB palette I'm using. But I mean, it seems it's in the ballpark, brightness wise. I mean, cool. Yeah, that brown is really brown on the Lava RGB. So I guess to wrap it up, I guess I can play for a minute, right, on the Lava RGB. Do people actually want to see me play video games? Where's my controller? Ooh, I can test out my wireless controller, which is there. Yeah, sweet. To sort of wrap it up, right? I think it's a step in the. It's an interesting. I don't even know. Like the NESRGB obviously doesn't need to be like fixed, right? There's no like. I don't know how to describe it. Oh, that's an interesting. Oh, the cable wasn't even plugged in. This could be weird. I have to plug the controller cable in while the console is running. Okay, got it. Is this going to work? How do you sync the N30? Okay, I did it. Okay, let's turn off the music for a minute. So this is the audio coming from the Merlin Shaw power board, right? So it's in stereo. Yeah, just coming right from the. Oh, I gotta mute this. That. Otherwise, you could hear double audio. There's really no latency, and I'm using a wireless controller too. I'm having no problems really playing it. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of latency, but comparable, right? I don't really perceive any latency. I do still see the noise though. You guys see the noise in the. I hope there's noise in the stream because that really. I want to kind of get that, you know, make sure that comes across. It's like a jailbar-y kind of. It's all over the video. It's like a screen door kind of effect. Let's see what happens if I put the RetroTink into a profile. Do. What are we using now? HD? No, this is SCART. Okay, so this is a 10x profile. Oh, unfortunately, the black background is not doing us any. Oh, I guess you could see on the blocks. This is a dark level. Let's get to another above ground level. Ah, shoot. Oh, I can't get up there, huh? Is there a... Nope. Wow, sucks to suck. Oh! Derp. Color space thing? I think it has more to do with the palette. The palette that's flashed on this is different than the one that's on the NESRGB. And unfortunately, I don't have a way to change it. Well, you could flash. The firmware is changed when you flash it. The palettes are the options for your palettes are chosen when you flash the firmware. So you can choose different ones, but there's also an in-game reset, or no, like a palette selection through the controller that doesn't work with the NES because it's the front-loading NES because it's a active high reset console versus the Lava RGB is set up for active low reset. So you can, the noise is back. Yeah, so I wish the palette was more similar. I mean, I guess I can't blame the Lava, you know, Retro Castle. But that's just the nature of, that's just the nature of NES color. Just kind of up to palettes. Actually, Firebrand X has a good article about NES palettes. But in the blue here, you can definitely see the noise bit. I could check. Yeah, let's see. Is that HDMI output? RGB range full. So I don't have any HDR stuff on. I'm just leaving that off. I guess actually this should be frame gen. Or frame lock, I mean. So that would be even less latency. And let me just double check the colors on my capture. Yep, Rec 709 color range full, so it's not. Oh god, what happened? Even the black bars are not black? Well, yeah, I could change it, but it's black on my OLED. Let's see. Let's pause. Oh, excuse me. My bad. Okay, so we're limited here. But then I'd have to change to limited on the in OBS. Okay, so did that make any difference? So this is now limited in both. Resubscribe because I actually played used the mod on the channel. Oh! Limited looks better on your end. Interesting. Does anybody else notice a difference? Oops, how do you do this? You have to jump to the next one. Oh, rip. I'm not sure about the limited thing. I can't really notice a difference on, well, I'll try it again. Let's see. What happens if I have it still set to limited here, but change it here? I can't really tell a difference on my the OLED. Or on the stream capture, to be honest. Sorry, I'm just switching back and forth between them. Alterations, shut up. That's funny. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Did it look worse when I had the NESRGB in there? So I'll switch back to the NESRGB. This is full. Or did it look better, I mean? Full, and switch the capture back to full. It could be a YouTube thing. Yeah, that's true. The problem is also the palettes as well. Yeah, I'm not necessarily streaming in HDR either, so well, I mean, what I see, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if what I see on my end is what you're going to see through the stream as far as the black bars, because they look black, but I'm just looking at it through the OBS preview on a pretty cheap monitor. So, all right. Well, if anybody has any more questions, first of all, I guess I want to big thank to PCBWay for sponsoring this series, this mod. I love doing this. I was I guess blown away by how relatively easy it was to get PCBWay to actually assemble this. I mean, I really didn't need much beside, you know, all the work was actually done for me already, right? So the Gerbers were there, the BOM file was ready. Actually, you know, Laserhertz and ManCloud helped me to get all the files ready. When I first ordered this, like maybe 3 weeks ago, because it's been waiting for parts and things to deliver. They did actually order the wrong, this might be because it might be a BOM thing, but they ordered the wrong footprint on the thing, but they were able to order the right one. I did have to pay $15 extra, 15, not 50, $15 extra for 2 parts that they ordered. I don't know if the wrong footprint, the wrong size. I don't know if that's a them thing, them issue, or bill of materials thing. Like maybe they didn't have the specific the moniker of the part number, but they did find the right ones right away. But everything was pretty much soldered except for that one that had the missing not footprint, designator. So that would have been fine if I had the right Gerbers. So the only other thing they didn't do was the RGB amp, which I expected because I told them. And they also didn't do the pin headers, right? Because the BOM includes the headers and things. But I wouldn't have PCBWay put those on because you want the you want to do that when you install the PPU. So only question I have is, oh, they look black to me, though I can't see any interference noise on my side. Interesting. YouTube crushes the quality, huh? Maybe you guys won't be able to tell any noise. I'll have to take a picture or a screenshot and I don't know, upload to Twitter maybe. I think there's still compression there, or maybe put it in a Google Doc or Google. Yeah, my Google Docs or something. Only question I have is there anything worth buying in the dying hours of Prime Day? Yeah, I mean, there kind of is. I posted some things that I found in my Discord. I mean, I don't know. You can it looks like I guess the one thing that I'll post that you might care for or not. So 8BitDo announced or released the wireless keyboard. This is an affiliate link, so I do earn a commission. Just a affiliate link. I do earn a commission, but you don't pay any extra. But I get a little commission for this. But they released their wireless keyboards, and this one is based on the Model M. So they had one before that was. One was based off of the NES, or just the colors of the NES. One was based off of the NES, one was based off the Famicom, and this one is the Model M. So this is 10% off. So if you wanted to buy this, or maybe you bought it recently, return that one and use my affiliate link, and you can get there's a 10% coupon, so it's $10 off now. If you here, I'll show it on the screen. It's this one. So the other ones are in here, and they're actually also on a they're on a bigger discount. So if you don't care and you want maybe the Famicom one, I guess there's a Commodore 64 one, but the Model M one is the most expensive one, but it's 10% off there. So anyways, this is 10% off if you check the box. So that's a thing. You'll have a real Model M? Well, good for you. Those are super expensive now. Even the Model Fs, like Model Ms and Model Fs are like hundreds of dollars, and like I know what I have kind of quality. I want a Model F because the Model F was the one that was the original one for the IBM PC. I think was called the Model F, not the Model M. But I know there's companies that make new ones, new Model F or whatever it's called. So I don't know. I don't really care. I'm okay with my new mechanical keyboards, new custom mechanical keyboards. So anyways, I'll leave you with that. Happy Prime Day, I guess. If you have any questions about the Lava RGB, leave them down below. I guess I'll kind of quickly wrap it up if you're just hanging on the last second here. Not an NESRGB killer. It is cheaper, right? If you're gonna mod a few consoles, right, and you want to get okay quality, it does have that noise in it. I don't know if that could be fixed after the fact, or if it's like the nature of the entire mod needs to be fixed or something. But it is overall cheaper, even assembled by like someone like PCBWay. Well, it's a little bit more expensive to buy get 5 of these assembled versus buy 1 NESRGB. So I was hoping it was kind of like a, hey, this is cheap kind of deal, you know, for a single one. You know, so if you divide the cost for 5 by 1 or by 5, it would be like, I think if you include the programmer, let's say it's like $200, you could buy 5 of them. So that's what, like $40 a piece, something like that, which is not bad. $40 a piece, or let's call it $50 a piece, versus like what, 110, 120 is the NESRGB, so about half price. So that's that. I love the Merlin Shaw board, works really well for this circumstance. You do have to modify the case. You will have to drill a hole, right? Because just because of how big the Genesis cables are, it's still too thick to fit through the stock case. So it's not technically still a no cut, but it's close to a no cut. It's the appearance of a no cut, and you get a cool Genesis output, Genesis 2 output. It makes it really easy. Like the audio comes directly from the Merlin Shaw board, so that's neat. There's different options. You can get one with powered USB input if you want. Just use a USB power delivery, which are you know, Zaxor approved now, and it just makes wiring it up very simple. Versus like a multi-out, unless you get the SnapFit multi-out or the Voltar flex cable style multi-out for like the NESRGB, I don't believe that is compatible per se with the Lava board. I don't know if the vias are all in the same order. If they are, you might be able to just slap the flex cable thing, the Voltar thing, if you wanted to do that. But all in all, if you're looking for the best quality, still the NESRGB is still it. But this is the beginning of a bunch of new projects, I feel, right? So like I said, Man Cloud, too many cloud names. Man Cloud might be working on a version, possibly a version that has Lumicode support. So this is the beginning of, I don't know when I said that, you said that's what she said too. This is the beginning of new mods, I hope, for the, I personally would like to see someone take the Lava RGB and make it a Lava HDMI, Lava digital video output with a HDMI-like connector on it. So you would have just even if it was like 480p output, something that you can go into like the RedHerring 4K or the Morph without anything else, like just HDMI input, I think would be sick. Cloudman Darth, yeah. So I think that's what I would like to see, is a replacement for the high def NES. I never had one of those. If somebody has one of those and they want to just like give me one, I would love that, because I collect consoles and mods and stuff. So I would just love to own one of those mods someday, even if it's not. Apparently, I've heard it's not great. There's some kind of latency in it. So okay, that wraps up the Lava RGB. Thanks for watching. Ooh, we got mystery. Don't they technically do that with the custom NES? They did that, but didn't release it. Oh, did Retro Castle make a custom NES? They did the custom Famicom thing, the Lava FC that has the integrated HDMI port. But apparently someone mentioned, actually Bob did a review on that. I didn't watch that in full detail. So maybe go watch Bob's. That's what I would recommend. If you watch this and you still have more questions, go watch Bob's Lava FC video, because that is it should be based off of the same kind of code as this, sort of. So, all right, thanks everybody. We'll be back with something new on Sunday. Wait, yeah, I should be available, because I think that's my dad's birthday. We're having a party for my dad, but I should be back, hopefully. So we'll see. Yeah, so take care, everybody. See you on Sunday.